We are on Daf Tes Zayin Abed Aleph, the last narrow line. Tanan Nosam, Hanoitel Eiman Alabanim. This is coming from the din of Shiluach HaKan. The Torah says, Ki yikara kan tzipah lefanecha baderech b'chol eitz el eretz efroichem b'bein v'em revetzes al efroichem. The mother is sitting on the eggs, oyala beitzim, on the chicks or on the eggs. Lo yisikacha eim alabanim. The Torah first says, you can't take the mother from on top of the children. Then the pasuk says, Shaleach teshalach hasaim. You should send away the mother. Es abanim tikach lach. So it's a lois asay and an asay. There's a lois asay leitikach haim al banim, and then afterwards it says an asay Shaleach teshalach hasaim es abanim tikach lach. So it's a machlokes. How does this work? What is the Torah? What is the lois asay and the asay? Tanasam anoidel elam emal aban. Rabbi Yehuda Omer loika ve'ena mishalech. The person gets Makkos, and he's doesn't send away the bird. That means if a person violated what the Torah said, lesikach emal avanim, and he did take the mother while it was sitting on the chicks, what he really should have done was send away the mother first. Even though the Torah says shaleach teshalach after the din of after the lesikach ha'em, the essay after the essay, it's not a lav hanitik essay, because once you sent away, once you went and took the eggs or the chicks while the mother was there, to send away the mother afterwards is a pointless gesture. So clearly the Torah, Rabbi Yehuda understands the Torah didn't mean to tell you that after you took away the eggs, then send away the mother and be menatik the lav by doing the essay. It's not a lav and nitik. So if you get Makkos, and there's no point in sending away at that point. And what does the Torah mean when it says a lois essay and an essay? It means that when you take the mother from the chicks, you're being over on both. You're being over on the lois essay. You're violating what the Torah says, loisika chaim alvanim. And you're also violating the essay that the Torah says, Shaleach teshalach. The Torah said you should send away, and you didn't do so. So it's not a lav hanitikal essay, but it's a lav in an essay that you're violating both by not doing what you're supposed to do. That means both things are telling you must send away the mother in the first place. That's Rabbi Yehuda. Everyone say, no, this is a regular old-fashioned lav shanitikal essay. First, the Torah said, don't take the eggs, and then you went and did that. The Torah says, now send away the mother from the empty nest. Rabbanan say, this is the rule. And whenever you have a lav hanitikal essay, you're not going to be chayiv on it. You're not going to get Makkos. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says about this then, not only is this a lois asay, sheyesh ba'asay, where you're not going to be mechuyev Makkos, we only have this and one other. This is the only case that it's going to depend on whether or not you do the essay. It means if you do the essay of sending away the mother, you'll be pater, but if you don't, you'll be chayiv. But in every other case, you're always going to be pater when you have a lav shenitikal essay. This is going based on what we had the machlokes on the previous amud about how does it work when you have a lav shenitikal essay. Rabbi Yochanan says it's bitloi beloy bitloi, meaning that a person, in order to be chayiv for the lav, when you have a lav shenitikal essay, he has to be mevatel the essay. He has to make it impossible to ever be mekayim the essay. Otherwise, you just wait. As long as it's possible for him to still be mekayim the essay, he can never be chayiv for a lav shenitikal essay. It's always left in abeyance. We don't know whether the person is going to do the essay, so therefore he can't get Makkos. But this case of Shiluach HaKan, there's a way to be mevatel the essay. What do you have to do? If the person kills the mother bird, then obviously he can no longer be mekayim the essay. So at that point, he'll immediately be chayiv. So, but this is a rare situation. Most lav shenitik la'aseh, no, you can later on, as we're going to see, for example, by the case of a gzela, you can later on, you always have an opportunity to be meshav the gzela. Yeah. I'm not sure why nicer is not also included in this. But anyway, the Gemara, that's the Mefarshim explain. But Rabbi Yochanan is saying, because I hold the only way you'll be l'chayiv malchus for lav shenitik la'aseh is when you're mevatel, you make it impossible to have a mukayim la'aseh. We only have this case of shiluach hakan as well as one other. On the other hand, according to Reish Lakish, who said earlier, which is not really negeya, but this is Reish Lakish said that you're going to be mechayiv on the lav as soon as the chachamim say you are over on the lav and you have to be mekayim the essay. As soon as Bezdin says that, the person is not mekayim the essay, he immediately gets malchus. He has to be mekayim the essay right away in order to avoid the malchus. To him, there'll be many cases where you can be mechayiv on a lav shenetik essay where the Bezdin told you to do the essay and you didn't do so. But back to Rabbi Yochanan. Amalei Rabbi Elazar. Heicha Amalei. Heicha. Rabbi Elazar asked Rabbi Yochanan, okay, you made a very intriguing statement. You said it's only this case of Shiluch HaKan and one other where a person has the ability to be Mevatel essay. What's the other one? Amalei L'chi Tishkach. Go find it yourself. He said, if you want to be a Talmud Chacham, you got to put some effort in. Don't just ask me right away what's the answer. You have to try to figure it out. Nafak dak va'ashkach. So he went and he looked and he found the Tanya, a brayta that we had before. Oynis shegirish. We said that a man who's ma'anis an isha. So the Torah says, first of all, he has to marry her, and secondly, the Torah says, loy isha. That there's also there's a lav that there's an essay that he has to marry her, and there's a loisa say that he's not loyuchol l'shalcha kol yamav. So we said, we say, if he's a kain, he's going to get malchus right away. So how does it come out that by a kain he gets malchus? So hani chalaman tani kimu leikimu, elaman tani bitlo Lagabi, the man Amru says that you have to be mavatal the essay. How are you mavatal the essay that the Torah said you should marry her? He always has the option to marry her. So he shouldn't get malchus until he's mavatal it. By Shiluch HaKan, there's a very easy way that he can mavatal the mitzvah assay of Shiluch HaKan. The Torah says to chase away the mother. If he goes and kills the mother, he's made it impossible for him to ever be Mekayim the essay. But by an oinus, where the din is that he has to go remarry his wife, who he was Megarish. How does he make it impossible for him to remarry his wife? Do you want to take a guess? How do you make it impossible to remarry your wife? There's the brute force method. Either katle, if he says like by the bird, if he goes ahead and kills his wife, it makes it impossible for him to marry her, and that's the reason why he's going to get malchus. He's got much bigger problems than that. He's going to get killed, and therefore he's not going to get malchus. And even though we said before the concept of misa arichta, you could get malchus together with misa. That's all if it's for the same thing. You don't get Kedei Rishasai just says that you can get Malchus and Misa for doing one thing. It's Misa Arichta, but this is for two separate things. So he wouldn't get the Malchus. So you still would be left that there's no way for a person to be Mavatal the Mitzvah Saseh by an Oinus. Because he's going to do that by killing his wife, and that's how he's Mavatal, that's how he gets rid of the possibility of him becoming the essay. He's going to anyway get killed, and he won't get the malchus. So how does he get rid of the possibility of him remarrying his former wife, and therefore he can't marry her, when he's makabel kedushin from another person? The din is that someone who's megarish his wife is allowed to remarry her until she marries someone else. But once she marries someone else, there's a din that it's also for him to be machzir gushasa. So if this ma'anis, who has a din that he has to marry her, and if he marries her, he's not allowed to be megarish, and if he's megarish her, he has to remarry her. If he would be the shliach, and he would be makabel the kedushin on her behalf from someone else, so he's facilitated her remarriage, which then makes it impossible for him to marry her. Then he was mevatel his essay of remarrying her. The Amar Rav, how does this work? Isha visa shliach. If she made him a shliach, even though he's the one who's physically being makabel the kedushin, he's not the one who's being mevatel the chances of her remarrying. He's just there. He's just a shliach. He's not the one who's actually doing it. And according to Rabbi Yochanan's whole bitloi, in order to be chayiv on a lav shenitikla essay, he has to be the one who destroys the possibility of him being mekayim the essay. He's not the one who really did it. He just allowed it to happen by being her shliach. But she's the one who really did it. And he loisha bis shliach. She didn't make a shliach. Kol kuminei v'loy klumu. His being makabel kedushin on her behalf without being her shliach is nothing. So that could either mean where he was the shliach of the Baal, so his shlichus didn't do anything. It's just the shlichus, her shlichus, that allows it to go into effect. When she accepts it, then she becomes impossible to remarry. Meaning that really, every time a man is makadosh, is ma'anas and isha, there's a mitzvah that he has to then marry her. If the woman says, "I don't want to marry her," obviously he can't marry her. We're not. This is an entitlement on her part. It's a privilege that she has the right to force him to marry. But if she doesn't want to, which I mean, on the way we look at the world, we would think that 99.999% of the time, unless it was like a very mercenary woman, and the guy who was ma'anas her was Elon Musk, she's probably going to pass on the opportunity to marry the guy who was ma'anas her. Doesn't look like they're going to have a very good shalom bayis. But it's always her choice whether she wants to do so. So if she didn't make him a shliach and he's just coming as a shliach of the Baal, or if then he hasn't done anything. And certainly if he wasn't anyone's shliach, then it's totally meaningless. So again, how do we have this concept that you're going to be loika by a inus? Where the husband, I'm sorry, it really is her husband, but it was the ma'anis who married her and then divorced her, made a neder b'rabim. So therefore, he's not able to be made for the neder. The machlokes in the Dorim whether someone can be made for a neder that was made in public. A typical neder, when someone makes a neder, says this thing should be hareza kainem alai, or whatever he says, to ask something on himself. If he does it privately, he can go to a chacham and tell him, the chacham will ask him, would you have made it if you would have known all the facts? And he says no, and then the neder is gone. But if he does it b'rabim, he's not able to be made for it. But this is machlokes. One mandama says even if he does it b'rabim, he could be made for it. So ma'ikal l'meimer according to that mandama. So the madir lal das rabim, instead of doing b'rabim where he does it in public, it means the way Rashi understands it. If he made a neder and he said, "I believe this woman did an oven. It's a problem for me to be married to her." He found this. He said, "I think there's some reason why she's also to me," which Rashi says is he doesn't clarify exactly what that means, but he contends that there's a reason why she's asked him, and he gets the rabbin to be maskim, to sign on to what he's saying. So when he does that, then he can't be made for it. The Amar Ameimer Hilchas Nedeshur the Ram Yesh Lafar Al Das Ram Mein Lafar. So Zak Gemara, this is l'chayra the way how he could. Again, so we'll just say quickly where we're up to. We're 5 lines from the bottom, and Rabbi Yochanan had made an assertion that he said, I only have 2 cases where somebody can be, when there's a lav shenitik la'essay, that the person can be mevatel the essay and therefore get malchus. Rabbi Yochanan Shita on the previous summit was that it's bitlay, lav shenitik la'essay is bitlay v'le bitlay. In order to be mechuyev malchus on a lav shenitik la'essay, he has to be mevatel. He has to get rid of any possibility of being mekayim the essay. That's the only point at which he could become mechuyev, like we said, because it's going to be hasra sofek. But he said there's only two cases. So the first one was a shiluch hakan, that the Torah says over there that you can send away the mother and therefore you won't be mechuyev for the lav. But he says over there there's an easy way to mevatel that, so you kill the mother. But Einis, we were saying how we wanted to say that's the second case, but the Gemara said how, because we said before that you get malchus. We brought the brisa earlier that said you can get malchus for an Einis who divorced his wife and doesn't want to return her. If he doesn't return her, there's an essay that he has to take her back and remarry her. How can he mevatel it? So we're saying where he made a neder al das rabim that he's not going to remarry her, so that's going to be a bittul of the essay that he has to remarry. So that's the second case of Rabbi Yochanan. But there are a couple of other possibilities of where a person can be over an alav shenitikla essay, and he could get rid of the essay. He could be mevatel the essay and make it impossible for him to ever be mekayim. But gezel, the Rachman amalei sigzel v'heshav is gzela. Torah says you're not allowed to steal, and if you steal, you should return the gzela. So there's an easy way that could come to mind of how he can make it impossible for him to return the gzela. He takes it and destroys it. He burns it, so there's nothing left to return. Then he should be mechuyev malchus for that. Or mashkin, Rachman amalei sovel beis alavet avoitai. A person, a lender is prohibited from entering the home of his borrower to take away the mashkin. But if he does so, if he takes away the mashkin, hashev tashav, he has to return it. Ha'avet kaboy hashemesh. He has to immediately, he has to return that mashkin that day. So again, if he takes that mashkin and then he destroys it, he's been mevatel the possibility of being mekayim the essay. Not only can you be mishkachas that by kima v'lekimai, which is the mandam Reish Lakish who is chaylik on Rabbi Yochanan and says that you can be over on a lav shenitikla essay right away if he's not mekayim the essay. But you find it even by betloi v'lebiloi according to Rabbi Yochanan, who says you have to be mevatel the essay, because like we just said, both gzela and the mashkin, the person can make it. He can be mevatel the essay by destroying the object and making it impossible to return it. So the Gemara, no, that's not a good din of bitla. Even if he destroys it, he's not mevatel the essay. Hasam kivin dechayev deshlumim ein aloiku mishalim. No, even if he destroys the thing, the object that he has to return, he could still be mekayim v'heshiv by returning the value. And so therefore, destroying the object has not really done anything. It hasn't done anything permanent, so he wasn't mevatel the essay. So if he stole something, he could return the value of what he stole, even if he destroyed it. And if he destroyed the mashkin, he could return the value of the mashkin. What about someone who stole the object of a ger and he destroyed the object? So now he has, at that point, he has a chiv tashlumin, and now the ger died. Umeisa ger. So if the ger dies, he has nobody to return it to, because he has no yarshim. So who's he going to return the tashlumim to? L'chayra, this is also, he was mevatel. L'chayra, he was totally mevatel the possibility of being mekayim the essay. And with the Gemara, no. Hasam ba gavar bar tashlumim. V'shibud ger hu de kapaka. He's saying he wasn't mevatel it. He made it when he destroyed the object. He really has to return it to the ger. But when the ger died, that took away that there's no place to return it to. It wasn't him that was mevatel his ability to mekayim the essay. The death of the ger did it. So if he does it actively, if he's not actively mevatel the essay, that's not going to be that he's not going to be mechuyev according to Rabbi Yochanan, who says he has to be mevatel the essay. Practically Gemara, so I'll tell you another possibility, and this one is actually going to the Gemara is going to stick with.
So why don't we say that he kills the ger, like we said by the Isha?
But we said that killing the ger, the Isha doesn't work. Only the Rabbinate, right? We had to say by Isha, he made a neder, not to pay it back. Not to marry her. If he makes a neder not to pay it back, it wouldn't work because he's making a neder amasha kasa b'tayr. If he makes a neder not to marry someone, I don't think that's making a neder amasha kasa b'tayr. I wonder why. I wonder why you can't make a neder on this also. I guess because there's no way. We said in the end you have to make a neder al das rabim in order to make it not shayach ta'afara. There's no way to make a neder al das rabim connected what the Torah says that you have to pay it back. By the case of the Isha, Rashi said it has to be specifically where he believed that it was also for him to marry her, like he held she was an erva or something, or for whatever reason he held it was also for him to marry her, and the Bezdin was maskim to him, and then it turned out that it wasn't true, but that's a neder that he can't overturn. There's no way to have a neder al das rabim on this point. But anyway, the Gemara says we have another. So we've already come up with two possibilities. So we said, Rabbi Yochanan says by Shiluach HaKan, as well as by the case of Oinus, we have this din that he can be mevatel the essay, and those are the two cases. What about peya? The Rahman Amalei Sechala Pa'as Sadcha. When someone has a field, he has to leave over a corner for the aniyim. And then the pasuk says, Lo ani v'leger tazav. After the Torah says you should leave it over them, it says additionally in essay you should give it to the ani the ger. What does that mean? You should give it to them if it seems to be the same thing. The Gemara, the mishkachas lo bekima v'lekima bitla v'le. That can be found that you can be mevatel. The Tanan, how you makayim the essay, mitzvahs that you could even be mevatel that essay. The Tanan mitzvahs peya lahafish minakama. The mitzvah, the lav is that you should leave it out over. That you should leave over a corner from the standing wheat. But if you didn't do so, you were over on the lav. There's an essay when the Torah says the second part, that's an essay that you should, even after you cut down the wheat, you should then separate from the bundles of wheat. And that's by Mimakaim that essay, you'll be menatic the lav that you didn't leave over originally from the pay. And if he missed that point, then he could even do it after it was in the stalks of wheat were bundled, and he threshed it and he took out the grains. He could even be mafresh from the piles of grain. And he could continue separating the peya until he smoothed out the grains. At that point, the Isser Meiser becomes tevel, that he has to take off Meiser. No, you don't have to take off peya. You don't have to take off Maisa from Peya. And any who takes it doesn't have to take off Maisa, because the Chi of Maisa first kicks in after Miruach. But once he's Mirchai, Ma'asav and Noisamlai. At that point, he takes off Maisa from what he has collected, the Balabayas, and then he gives the Peya after Maisa, which is a new thing. Prior to that, he could give the Peya without taking Maisa. And but the Gemara is saying, but that then you reach the end. Up till the point where you make it into flour, a person is allowed to take off peya. Once he makes it into flour, then he's no longer able to separate peya. He's lost his opportunity. So by doing the act of grinding the wheat into flour, he's lost his ability to take off peya. So really all this wasn't. These are details that are not really relevant. The main point is that the Torah says you have to separate peya right away. And that's a lav, or even a lav, you don't do so. And you have the opportunity to make up for it up till the point that it becomes flour, at which point you're no longer able to, you don't have the ability to make up for it by doing the essay of Azav Taza. La'ani lager Taza. So tomorrow, no, could there be Shmuel? Dama af mafish manisa. Rabbi Shmuel says you can even separate peya once it was made into dough. There's nothing stopping you. But he has an easy way of being mevatel. He holds you could always do the essay of peya by separating the peya. But what happens if he eats all the all of the dough that was made from this wheat. So now he's lost all chance to be able to be mnatik the law by doing the essay of eventually giving the payah. And what it says, you have a very good time. That this is the second case that Rabbi Yochanan was referring to. This is so he means Rabbi Yochanan means that both by shiluach hakan and by payah a person can be mevatel the essay. But we had previously said that he can be mevatel the essay by a oinus by making a neder al das rabin. That's not going to be an effective way of being mevatel the essay. The hecha imrin al das rabin hafara. Why did we say oinus is going to get Makkos? Because he made a neder al das rabin, and that he can't be made for it. The davar harashus. That's only on something that he has a choice if he wants to do it or not. Since over here he's mechuyev to marry her, even if he does it al das rabbim, even if he gets the bezdin or the rabbim to be maskim to him on his afara, on his neder, he's going to still be he's going to be able to be made for it, because then the rabbim, we can assume, even though it was a rabbin, you can't collect everyone. We could say in Anan Sadi that they would be maskim to the afar. There was this teacher of children who was he was smacking around the kids. Right? Rashi says Makkos, which these days would mean even looking at him crossly. But back in the good old days, it meant he used the stick unsparingly. And they kicked him out of his job. It was even back then there was a limit. But Adi Rav Acha made a neder that this person should not get he wanted to make it, he made a neder al das rabbim, this person should never come back. But Hadi Ravina, the lo yishtakach the dayi kavose. He was made for the neder. He said that there's no one else, even though he had his problems with his chinuch system, he was too unsparing with the rod, but he was the best at teaching the bachrim. He knew how to be medayik. He was very careful on the what do you call it? I think we had this back. I don't remember where, but we had that a rebbe has to be extremely medactic. We had a question: is it more important to get a rebbe who knows more, or one who's more medactic? And the Gemara came to this conclusion: you have to get someone who's very precise. He's very exact in what he teaches. He has to get everything right in order that the children should believe him. So they couldn't find anyone who was equal to him in precision. So therefore, they had to be made for the neder al das rabbin, since this was a neder that was a rishus. So neder that's rishus, you could be made for even if it's al das rabbin. Zak the Gemara. Amr Yehuda. So we said skip. In the Mishnah we said someone who eats nevelos and treifus, shkatzim u'ramasim is going to get Makkos. The Gemara talks a little bit about shkatzim u'ramasim. Amr Yehuda. Hayman da'achol binsei de bei karva. Someone who eats a worm that's found in cabbage. Right? We all check. You have to check the cabbage for worms. We did this before Pesach to make the stuffed cabbage. So someone who eats those worms, malkinan le mishum sheretz hasheretz alaretz. He's going to get, the Gemara is going to say in a minute, the 5 malchus that you get for being over on eating a sheretz that's a sheretz that goes on the ground. There are 8 total psukim legabi shrotzim. 2 of them are generic isurim that any sheretz you get a malchus on. Then there are 3 that apply specifically to shrotzim in the water. There are 2 that apply to shrotzim on the ground. Is that right? 2 or 3? I'm sorry, 3 that go to. I'm sorry, there are 2 that go to those that are on the water. 3 that goes to those that are on the ground, and then there's also things that fly. There's one that's the last one. So this person he ate something that grows on the ground. So he's mechayev the two general ones as well as the three for an animal that's on the ground. Hahu the achal benisa. I'm sorry. So there was such a person, the achal benisa the vekarva, who ate one of these worms. But Nagdir Yehuda gave him Malchus. Amr Abaya, you only get one Malchus. You don't get 5 separate Malchus. Amr Abaya, achal putisa. If you eat a kind of, Rashi says, a kind of animal that a sheretz that goes in the water, like the arba. Like we said, there are 2. He doesn't get the 3 that apply to land animals, but he gets the 2 that go on water shrotzim. Nimala, an ant, like a chamish. The same thing as the cabbage animal, and the Mefarshim explain the Paiskim and the Shulchan Aruch all explain what's the chiddush of these 2 things. Why do we say both the cabbage and the ant? To say the same thing. Mishum sheretz hasheretz al aretz. Tzira, he eats a hornet like a shesh. Mishum sheretz ha'ayf. A hornet both goes on the ground. It walks on the ground. It's not a water animal. It's a land animal, but it also flies. So it gets piled on top. In addition to what it has, the same as the ant, the land-based isser, it also has that it flies. Amar v'choy. Hamasha es nekavav. Once we mentioned the din of the pasuk ends when it talks about a sheretz, it says, Daltam ben behema ta'ir l'tamei ben oifa tamei l'tor l'shakshus nashechem ba'behema u'ba'oif b'chol ha'shetimah sa'adam Hashem dalti l'chem l'tam. The Torah says loy t'shakshus nashechem by eating these shgatzim, but there's another din, another 2 dinim of bal t'shaksu, which we understand to mean an additional, more broad isser. So hamasha es nekavav, someone who doesn't go to the bathroom when he really needs to, over mishum bal loy t'shaksu. He's over on this din of loy t'shaksu. Amar Bibi Ba'abaya, hayman de shosi bekarna de umna. Another way you could be over on this bal t'shaksu of doing something that's inherently disgusting is to drink using a tube that was used by bloodletters. They use it to collect blood in it, and he uses it as a drinking cup. That's disgusting. But back to the bugs. Amarava Baravuna, Risaktishan of Olam. If someone ground up 9 ants, Behavi Echad Chai, and then and those 9 ants did not reach the size of a kazayah. And then he took another live animal, a live ant, Beshlimin kazayas, and that was the one that put it over the top to make it a kazayas. Like a vav, he gets 6 malchus, and the cheshbon works out. Hey mishum beria, 5 of them, like we said before, that the Torah says bal tashaksu on eating an animal, on eating a sheretz, and this din of eating a sheretz is only a full sheretz. That's what's disgusting, to eat a full sheretz. But if it's ground up, then it's just for then it's just an avela. You're eating an animal that's also to eat. But echad rishon kazayis nevela. So that by eating a full kazayis, he's over on the din of eating a kazayis of treifa animals. And in addition, he has the hey mishum eating a beria of the one full of the full ant that he ate. Rav Amar Rabbi Yechon afilu shnayim. Even it doesn't have to be 9; it could be 2 that were less than a kazayis. He'll still be over. Even if it's just one large ant that's dead, that's ground up, and one full-size ant, he's still going to be mechayiv 6. V'loy pligi, and they're not saying there's not a machlekes. Ha-baravari, ha-bezutri. The last 2 amoraim are talking about larger ants. It's possible to even have one large ant together with that's ground up, together with the other ant that's a beria, and together will add up to a gazayis, and you'll be mechayiv all 6. And Taisus asks, what difference does it make? It seems obvious that if it adds up, what does it make sense? How many ants would ground up once it's ground up? So he says that because you might think that the grinding up of a large ant does not result in as much. It takes up more space than grinding up 9 separate ants. I don't understand the the reality of it, the Metzias, but that's what he says. That's why you might think it would have a different din. Okay, we're gonna stop over here. To be fair to the Ilam, not gonna make you do Tevel and Meiser Ani when in extra time.
That wasn't easy.
Yeah,
The Mishnah's staring down at you.
yeah.
I
Have a good
shech.
day.